Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
It all started as a normal day, or at least that's what I thought. Salem in October is pure magic for buskers like me. Crowds from all over, kids wide-eyed at the costumes, and the general vibe that anything's possible. I had my usual setup. Tip bucket clipped with my busking license, my demon costume polished and ready, and my voice warmed up for the day. I'd been doing this for 3 years without a hitch. No drama, no nonsense, just people enjoying the art and tipping when they felt like it. But yesterday, Salem turned into a battleground I hadn't signed up for. I found an open spot on the street, far from any fire hydrants or emergency access points, and got to work around 9 a.m. The crisp autumn air nipped at my exposed skin, but the energy of the crowd kept me warm. Families strolled by, pointing and smiling at my elaborate demon getup. A group of teenagers stopped to take selfies with me, dropping a few dollars in my bucket before moving on. For 2 hours, it was just me, my craft, and the crowd. Then she showed up, Karen. Okay, maybe not her real name, but it fit. She strutted onto the scene dressed as a witch with long white hair, her costume looking a little worse for wear compared to my carefully designed demon attire. At first, I thought nothing of it. Buskers come and go, and as long as we give each other space, it's all good. But Karen didn't seem interested in all good. She planted herself about 40 feet from me and started her act, which was fine until she turned her attention on me. Her mouth started moving, but I couldn't make out what she was saying over the crowd. So, I waved politely, thinking maybe she had a question or wanted to chat. That's when she shouted across the bustling street, "You're too close. You need to back off 50 feet. This is my spot." Her tone was sharp enough to cut through the noise, and I felt my stomach twist. I walked over cautiously, not wanting to cause a scene. "Is there a problem?" I asked, genuinely confused. "You're ruining my tips," she snapped, crossing her arms tightly across her chest. "I've been doing this for 15 years, and I know how this works. This is my spot, and you have no right to come in here and take what I've built. Do you even understand how hard I've worked to get people to recognize me? Every dollar in that tip bucket represents a moment of connection I've created with this crowd over the years. You think you can just waltz in here, looking all flashy in your demon costume, and steal my audience? It doesn't work that way. You're confusing people, and it's messing with my money. I've earned this corner, and I won't let some rookie ruin everything I've built. So back off and find your own place to perform." I blinked, unsure how to respond. "The street's public," I said carefully. "We don't own spots. As long as we're not blocking anything or breaking any rules, we're good to go." Here's an expanded version of the dialogue from those 2 sentences. That didn't sit well with her. Her eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, jabbing a finger toward my tip bucket with an intensity that felt almost accusatory. "Where's your license? Do you even have one?" Her voice dripped with disdain, as if the very idea that I could be a legitimate performer was an affront to her years of experience. She straightened up, crossing her arms again, clearly expecting me to stammer or back down under the weight of her scrutiny. I gestured to my bucket, where my license was prominently displayed, the shiny paper glinting in the sunlight. "It's right there," I said, trying to keep my tone steady despite the tension crackling between us. "I've been licensed for 3 years now. No issues at all." I leaned in slightly, meeting her gaze directly. "You can check with the city if you want. I follow all the rules, and I've never had a complaint filed against me." My voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. I was tired of her theatrics. "So maybe instead of trying to bully me out of here, you should focus on your own act and let the audience decide who they want to watch." She wasn't having it. Her eyes narrowed as she pivoted to another excuse. "It's the costumes," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "We're both in white hair. You're confusing people, and it's messing with my money." I couldn't help but laugh, though I quickly stifled it. "Costumes? Really? People tip based on what they enjoy, not because our wigs are the same color." Her face reddened, and she leaned in like she was about to deliver the final blow. "It does matter. You need to move 50 feet away. That's town hall rules, and I'm getting them involved." At that point, I realized reasoning wasn't going to work. "Look," I said, trying to keep my tone calm, "I'm just here to perform. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes. Let's just keep doing our thing. But Karen wasn't done. As I turned back to my spot, she shouted after me, "You're ruining my flow." It didn't stop there. Every time someone approached me, kids, families, anyone, she'd yell something snide. "You're too close. You're taking my spotlight. I'm calling town hall." Parents exchanged awkward glances, and kids looked confused. One little girl, dressed as a fairy, asked her mom why the witch was so angry. I tried to stay focused on my act, but Karen's shouting was like a constant buzz in my ear. It wasn't just the yelling, though. She started rallying other buskers nearby, spinning some story about how I was stealing her spot and ruining her day. The whispers and side eyes were enough to make me want to pack up and leave. But no. This was my space too, and I wasn't about to let her bully me out of it. After nearly 40 minutes of this nonsense, I decided enough was enough. I stepped aside, pulled out my phone, and called the police non-emergency line. "Hi, I'm a busker in Salem, and I'm being harassed by another performer," I explained. "She's yelling at me, making a scene, and it's getting uncomfortable." The officer arrived about 15 minutes later, weaving through the crowded street. He was calm but clearly tired, like this wasn't his first run-in with Karen types. I explained the situation, detailing her accusations, the shouting, and her claim that the spot was hers because of her supposed 15-year tenure. The officer shook his head and sighed. "You're not the first to deal with this," he said. "Some buskers think they own certain spots just because they've been here a while. But the street's public, and as long as you're not blocking access, you're fine." He walked over to Karen, who immediately launched into a tirade. I couldn't hear everything, but her gesturing and raised voice said it all. She waved her arms dramatically, pointing at me like I'd committed some heinous crime. Meanwhile, I went back to performing, though my focus was split between my act and watching the drama unfold. The officer returned a few minutes later, looking slightly exasperated. "She's been warned," he said. "I told her to stop harassing you. If she keeps it up, she'll have to leave." I nodded, grateful for the intervention. "Thank you. I really didn't want to escalate this, but she wouldn't back down." He gave a small smile. "I'll stick around for a bit, just in case." Karen stayed quiet for the rest of the day, though she glared daggers at me whenever our eyes met. Her act continued, but the energy was off, probably because her shouting had driven away half her audience. I carried on, posing for pictures with kids and chatting with families. Every now and then, I'd catch her muttering under her breath, but I ignored it. She wanted a reaction, and I wasn't going to give her one. As the sun dipped low, casting Salem in a golden glow, Karen finally packed up and left, her posture rigid with frustration. I stayed a bit longer, enjoying the peace that settled over the street. It wasn't the day I'd planned, but at least I'd stood my ground. The next morning, I hesitated before heading out. Part of me wanted to find a new spot, just to avoid another confrontation. But then I thought about all the families and kids who'd enjoyed my performance, despite Karen's attempts to ruin it. I couldn't let her win. So, I suited up, grabbed my gear, and headed back to the same spot. To my surprise, Karen was already there, setting up her act. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed, and I braced myself for another round of shouting. But instead, she just huffed and turned away. I set up my spot, keeping the same distance as yesterday, and started my routine. For the first hour, it was tense. Karen kept shooting me dirty looks, and I could hear her muttering to herself. But she didn't yell or try to interfere. As the day wore on, the crowd grew, and both our tip buckets started filling up. At one point, a group of tourists stopped between us, trying to decide which act to watch. I saw Karen tense up, ready to pounce, but then something unexpected happened. One of the tourists, a middle-aged woman with a thick southern accent, turned to Karen and said, "Oh, honey, your witch costume is just darling. But we simply must see this demon fellow first. Don't worry, we'll come back for you." Karen's face turned red, and for a moment, I thought she might explode. But then she forced a smile and said through gritted teeth, "Of course, enjoy the show." As the group moved towards me, I caught Karen's eye. There was still anger there, but also a flicker of something else. Resignation, maybe? Or just exhaustion from fighting a battle she couldn't win. Either way, it felt like a small victory. The rest of the day passed without incident. Karen stuck to her act, and I stuck to mine. We didn't speak, didn't acknowledge each other, but the tension from yesterday had eased. As I packed up that evening, I realized that sometimes, standing your ground isn't about winning an argument or proving someone wrong. It's about showing up, doing your thing, and not letting anyone else dictate your worth. Salem in October might be magic, but it's also a lesson in human nature. People come from all over, bringing their hopes, fears, and yes, sometimes their entitlement. But in the end, it's not about who's been here longest or who shouts the loudest. It's about the art, the performance, and the connections we make with our audience. As I walked home that night, my tip bucket heavy and my spirits lifted, I couldn't help but wonder what tomorrow would bring. Would Karen be back? Would she have learned anything from this experience? Probably not, but that was okay. Because I'd learned something about myself, about standing up to bullies and believing in my right to be there. The streets of Salem have seen centuries of drama, conflict, and resolution. My little showdown with Karen was just a tiny blip in that long history. But for me, it was a reminder that sometimes, the most powerful magic isn't in our costumes or our acts. It's in our ability to stand tall, stay true to ourselves, and keep performing, no matter who tries to steal our spotlight.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.